All right, Kyle. We gave you your choice of all the offensive linemen. So give us maybe your process here on how you chose these, and then get right into it.
It's important to point out the process. Also, shout out to Paramount's very own Landman. We just saw the ad for that, and I'm going somewhere with this. Teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, they're kind of like oil barons. Wherever they put their dipstick in the ground, they're going to strike that liquid gold. And it seems to me as if Brett Veach and crew have done it again at the left tackle position with Josh Simmons. Now, Josh Simmons is a guy who jumped out on tape in college, like explosion, the likes of Trent Williams. I'm not saying he's as good of a player as Trent Williams or he's ever going to be a Trent Williams. But when you see pop, and there we go right there, Harry, this is where I'm going. I saw yesterday, and I tweeted this out, I saw my guy Josh Simmons getting into a little bit of a tussle with old 97 there, a little late after the whistle activity. You can judge a player off of his punch and pass protection, or you can just judge a player on his right straight. And this guy, Josh Simmons, has shown me that he can play football at an elite level, and he's got that nasty. And I texted Coach Heck yesterday, and I was like, hey, congrats on your guy Simmons. I knew he was a football player. I didn't know he was a grinder like this. He fits into your room really well. And he was just like, LOL, thanks, big guy. I know that he knows that he's got one. And I think that the fact that Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback, he's on the Kansas City Chiefs. He's the Chiefs. He will be center stage. He will be center stage every week. And people are going to have a lot to say about his performance. And I think he fits the bill and he's going to meet expectations. I think he's an immediate guy who's in contention for a Pro Bowl at the left tackle. The other guy, and I started with the left tackle, but this is the right guard for the San Francisco 49ers. And we talked about him ad nauseum last year because when he hit the ground running, it was like, oh my God, it's like, when Zach Martin got in the league, he made it look easy. And another guy, I'm not going to say he's Zach Martin at all because that's a Hall of Famer. Shout out to Zach. But Dominic Puny's technique, his effort, his finish, and the way he just fits into Kyle Shanahan's system tells me that he is going to be a star in everyone's eyes, not just pushing the Pile fans and Mike and I and Ryan. And on that same conversation point, Zach Frazier, the center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is going to be center stage as well. He's going to have one of the most famous people in American sports have his hand in his butt crack week in, week out. Fans are going to see this guy. They're going to see that he gets after at the center position. And it's one of those positions that has become more appreciated in recent years, thanks to guys like Jason Kelce and obviously Cam Jurgens filling in his shoes. Zach Frazier, Grant Barton, Cooper Beebe. We've got a lot of young centers with some juice in the league. And I know Mike wants to roast me here.
See, I was going to say, though, that pick of Zach Frazier, it doesn't really do him justice. If you have like a headshot of Zach Frazier, that's like, if you just look at his face, that's how you know that guy's an elite center. Every elite center, I think ever, and I say this in the nicest way, has been extremely
blockhead.
It just like not a good looking. It is not. It is, yes. It is a position that trends towards, let's just say, uglier guys. I mean, like, you want your center to be a big ugly. Like,
not even uglier guys, just guys that you couldn't really kidnap with two people necessarily.
Right,
like, you know, I'm thinking about the great centers, you know, and you named Creed Humphrey. And I think the phenotype, the body type, the animalistic personality, I think Richie Incognito, although he was a guard, I think he would have been one of the best centers that ever played the game. Look, if you've got an ass kicker in the middle, you're going to be all right at guard. Now, if you've got some decent guards and decent tackles, you're going to be in a really good spot. Speaking of good guards, a guy who his slugging percentage was very high in the time that he played for the Detroit Lions is Christian Mahogany. And I was texting with my dad about this guy last night, and we were just having conversations about how Detroit will survive the exodus in their coaching staff. It's guys like Christian Mahogany. It's toughness that Penei Sewell has. It is the willingness to go do anything to make it happen offensively that Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all these guys exemplify week in, week out. But it starts with the next man up mentality. Christian Mahogany had it last year. He is going to grab this spot and never let it go. Detroit fans are going to love him. NFC North fans are probably going to hate him. And it's just another one of the long line of guys in Detroit that can block their asses off. Another guy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Talk about Mahogany and Simmons for a second, because both of them had interesting prospect profiles. Simmons was fun. I think everyone in America had the exact same take on Simmons. Everyone's like, tape was probably top 10. The knee injury is one of the worst you can have for an offensive lineman. And he'll probably go to the Chiefs and turn out like Trey Smith turned out for the Chiefs, who was fell to 6 because he had blood clots. No one wants to take a chance. Falls there, they take a chance, and now he's just never going to get hurt ever again and be like a 3-time pro. Mahogany is an interesting one because he fell because he has 2 legs that are over an inch apart in size, is what I've been told, which is some people have like a minor difference. He has like a large difference between the length of his 2 legs, and people worried about his
peg leg.
Yes. I mean, just hip issues, right? So he fell to the 6th, but if you watched him on tape towards the end of the year when he was starting, he is not a 6th rounder. That guy.
I got a question for both of you guys on this topic. If you were Christian Mahogany and both of your legs were different sizes, drastically different, would you go with the new in vogue leg lengthening on your shorter leg, or would you reduce the size of your femur on the other leg?
Oh,
think about performance here. I'm going shorter.
I think so. Lower center of gravity. You're less likely. Yeah. No, I think.
Wouldn't you just wear lifts? I mean, you're in shoes.
Right. We're getting surgery, buddy. We're not just putting on a Band-Aid. All right.
I wonder if he does wear lifts, though. I wonder if he has one shoe that's just
orthotics for sure.
Yeah. Jeff Okuda's hand was like 9 3/4 on one, and it was 8 and change on the other. And they measured the wrong hand. He told us at the combine. So they're like, this guy has like Ryan Wilson hands. Hey, let me ask you this quick before we move on. Should we rethink, or are we not giving enough thought to the idea of drafting guys like Creed Humphrey or Zach Frazier in the first round because they're centers?
Look, that's probably why I'm not in the draft room, because I would pull the trigger on a guy like that, because I understand how important it is. But
Grant Barton went first round.
At the end of the day, you need guys that are catching the ball, throwing the ball, rushing the guy that's throwing the ball, covering the guy that's catching the ball. For whatever reason, those guys are very important.
So Grant Barton was the last center to go first round,
but he was a left tackle.
He was a tackle, versatile. The last guy who was like a center, everyone knew he was going to be center and got drafted to play center, I believe, was Frank Ragnow. Well, technically not. I guess Billy Price was picked right after him. So Billy Price was the last guy.
Tyler Linderbaum?
Oh, yeah, Linderbaum. Okay.
Yeah. And I guess they didn't pick up his 5th-year option, correct?
Is that right? He is. Let me go right now.
I don't think they did.
Yeah,
but it was because it would be at the interior offensive line rate when centers.
Okay. So there's actually a reason that makes sense. Gotcha.
Okay. So Linderbaum. Sorry. So there's just not a strong history of centers. And if they do, you rarely see them go top 15. Yeah. But it's funny. Everyone says, center is probably, people will say which, most valuable offensive line position. Tackle, yeah. Then people will probably say center, yeah. No offense, Kyle. But just because of what it means to a team. But then there's also the flip side of that. It's like, well, you don't know how a guy's going to handle your offense, handle a playbook when he's just a rookie. Maybe you don't want that guy at such a valuable position to have no experience in the NFL. So you can see it both ways, but I do agree. I mean, it feels like a position that the NFL has been able to identify. All the centers that have been drafted highly have been studs for the most part early on in their career. So feels like a little bit of a market inefficiency, if you ask me.
You know what song they play when people rush Darnell Wright? He'll be coming around the mountain when he comes. Darnell Wright is a hill, a human hill, a mountain, a national park. He is so big. He is so strong, and he is so raw and still being developed. I fully estimate that Ben Johnson is going to use this man as a sledgehammer on the backside of the run game. He is also a guy that can widen and expand. He can expand and he can really widen and displace edge defenders. When you have that weapon in your arsenal as an offensive play caller, you become very dangerous in the run game. Not only that, you become very dangerous at cutting the field in half and allowing your quarterback to sneak out the backside. I think having a play side tackle is wildly important. Mike and I talk about this all the time. He is the offensive tackle that's in the field of vision of Caleb Williams. And look, that's important. When your tackle's getting beat a lot, your quarterback doesn't have the confidence. When you've got a stone wall at the right tackle spot, a la Lane Johnson, you feel very confident. Darnell Wright's going to be a really good player. People will have an appreciation for his talent after this year. I'm not saying the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. What I'm saying is Darnell Wright is going to be on a couple lists this year, some good lists.
Ryan, you haven't been around much, obviously, but I'm just going to clue you into a little secret. We can't do a list like this without Kyle putting one Bear on. He has to do it somewhere, some way, shape, or form has to come back to the Bears. Darnell Wright's broken out already. Are you saying – so I can see the argument that after this year, he's a top 5 right tackle in the NFL.
Do you think he's a top 15? Do you think he's top 15 right now?
I think he's a top 10 right tackle right now.
Okay.
Like I think that's –
No, I'm talking tackles.
Tackle. I'd have to put a list together.
We got to get out of the teens to really break out there, bud. You're in the crowd right now.
I can see the argument being made that, like, hey, Ben Johnson's offense, he becomes his version of Penei Sewell. We start talking about him in that sort of era after this. And I mean, he truly is like, he's franchise right tackle. There's no doubt about it. He has been an absolute home run of a pick. But he's already broken out. Let's see. He's at the press.
Hey, Mike, I Googled Tyler Linderbaum's face. He looks exactly like what you were talking about. Tyler Linderbaum looks like a 350-pound Zach Bryan.
Dude, yes, there's a phenotype, and it's not pretty, but it works.
All right, that's what I got.
So Darnell Wright, to close the book on it. If he got signed a contract right now, it would be $25 million. It would be higher than what we just saw from Bernard Raymond. It would be a big contract. So I do think he'll be even better though in Ben Johnson's offense. All right, we're getting to tight ends. Me and Ryan are back here. I tried to trend more away from first rounders, I'll say. I wanted to go a little down the board because every first rounder, you can say, he hasn't broken out in year 2 or year 3. It's like, yeah, you're hoping he breaks out. Everyone can say that guy will break out. But I had to, at this one, put a first rounder. I had to go with Dalton Kincaid. To me, he feels like when Quinnen Williams came out of Alabama and his first 2 years was just like, that's the guy that everyone was saying was this elite player. Like if Quinnen Williams didn't succeed, I would have maybe quit scouting because it would have been impossible, because watching Quinnen Williams tape was like at Alabama was as good as you'll see a defensive tackle. He was highly athletic. It's like, if that guy didn't work out in the NFL, what are we even doing here? That's how I feel about Dalton Kincaid. If Dalton Kincaid with freaking Josh Allen, MVP Josh Allen, can't turn into an elite tight end from what I saw from him at Utah, from what I saw from him early on in his career, like I might as well just pack it up and just say I'm never going to know how to do my job at the highest level. Or just no one's ever going to know what the hell they're doing here, because he was just so damn good, such a polished wide receiver. Has obviously had a lot of near misses, especially last year, and last year played through bursitis. Like if you watch his tape, he was not himself. He had a knee injury that he had fluid in his knee throughout the entire season, and also tore his PCL at one point. So a injury plagued year. But if he can't break out in year 3 with that lackluster wide receiver room, I don't know. I might have to pack it up, Ryan. I might have to quit this job.
Jeez.
I feel like Dalton Kincaid is sort of in the Darnell Wright category. I think he's sort of arrived. Like I've always thought he's pretty good. I know he's there. I think he was banged up a little bit last year. I get that. I would be more impressed to see Dawson Knox in this list. He feels like he's on the way out. But Dalton Kincaid he's going to, if you told me he was 80% of the way to Brock Bowers this season, I'm like, yeah, I could totally see that, because Josh Allen is the boat that lifts, is the tide that lifts all boats that are in that bag for sure. And I like Dalton. He's insanely athletic, a little older, coming out of Utah, I believe. Yeah, there's so much to like, especially given the wide receiver room that you're talking about.
And I'm rooting for him after the way they finished their season too.
Who is your tight end?
He didn't catch that ball. That was tough.
Oh, I was trying to figure out what that. Oh yeah. All right. Let's try to bring this back up a little bit here, Kyle. I didn't know Mike's non-first rounder rule, which is actually a pretty good rule, but I got lucky with this first guy, Brenton Strange, former second-round pick. Evan Ingram's now in Denver, where he's going to be remade into the image of Sean Payton. I love Brenton coming out. I thought there was a lot of untapped potential coming out of Penn State. I thought he's a really good blocker, but I thought he had some athleticism that was sort of under the radar and underutilized at Penn State. And I think he's going to get that opportunity in a Liam Cohen offense from the Sean McVay tree. So we know they like their tight ends. I think he's going to surprise some people with his ability to block. But I think where you have Brian Thomas Jr., we know what he can do. They have De'Ami Brown. We'll figure out what his role is going to be as number 3. And we'll see what Travis's role is going to be, because if Travis isn't hitting the ground running as solely a wide receiver on week 1, there's going to be some opportunities for the running backs and the tight ends to get involved. And I think Brenton has a chance to do that. And I'll just mention this. Cade Otton last year in Tampa Bay and Liam's offense, 87 targets, 59 catches, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Cade was fun coming out, but I don't think anyone saw that in his immediate future as an NFL tight end. So I think Strange is a better athlete than Cade. Not as big, but he could put up some pretty impressive numbers as well.
I love this pick. Love this pick from you. One, because what you just mentioned there, Cade Otton put up numbers, and comparing the two, I think Brenton Strange is the much more gifted wide receiver between the two. And there was like that stretch. Remember when all the receivers went down for the Bucs, and all of a sudden just the offense was Cade Otton's? I think he had like almost 10 catches a game for like 3 straight weeks. But I do think that in this offense, he'll get a bunch of targets, and the guy has real ability to get open on his own. There was a clip I tweeted out last year, and it was kind of to show how bad Gabe Davis was in that signing, but also it was them running the exact same route. Him and Gabe Davis run the exact same route, and you could not tell which one was the guy they just paid $13 million a year. But that's also like a feather in Brenton Strange cap. He is a 250-pound tight end. And so I agree. Those two, I think Kincaid, Strange, if they both don't go for 700 plus yards, I think I'd be very surprised. Not to say they're, no one's going to be Brock Bowers. No one's going to be Travis Kelce anytime soon, but this is those are your next up at the tight end position, in my opinion.
RAS guy, Brenton Strange.
RAS guy.
I'd get to wide receiver.
All right. I didn't follow the assignment here, Kyle. I went with Rome Odunze.
There was no assignment. That was my.
Let's go.
But look, the thing, there's some, you guys, and I'm sure you've covered this to death. They had a OC that lasted 6 weeks. The head coach didn't exactly have the locker room. Caleb was frustrated, and Rome didn't look anything like he did his last season at Washington. And I thought, and Mike, I don't know if you agree with me on this, I thought going from 22 to 23, Rome Odunze's tape was some of the best tape among the wide receivers I remember watching. He dominated 2023 his last year at UW, and I think he's going to be a little bit more comfortable in the offense. And Kyle, you can speak to what year 1 versus year 2 looks like for any player, but I would imagine you have some time to rest in the offseason finally. It's not the whole pre-draft process thing. And then athletically, we know what he can do, and I know Ben Johnson has big plans for him for being that number 1 receiver. So I expect him to break out in a big way, and I expect to see a lot more of UW than I saw of year 1 Chicago and Rome.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Rome coming out, and I echo that sentiment, where it's just like, you saw him in Washington's offense run exactly what like NFL wide receivers run. It was a very much that's why their OC ended up being the Seahawks OC, but like it was a full, complete route tree, slot, outside, any level of the football field. You saw him just do it all, and at a high level, plays the catch point, plays after the catch, getting open on his own. Really just a complete, well-rounded game. You're just like, maybe he doesn't run a 4.35 like Malik Neighbors, but there's no fat in his game. There's no reason for concern. The only reason for concern last year, when everyone's like panicking, sky is falling. Should we have drafted? Who did everyone want them to draft last year, Kyle? What was the conversation? Instead of
Daniel.
It was a tackle. Well, not that, but everyone was like, we should have drafted Rome Odunze. We should have drafted an offensive tackle.
I forget who the tackle was. Joe Alt.
Okay, but they would have had a trade up for Joe Alt. Or no, it was Fashanu.
Yeah. Olu, yeah.
Should we have drafted Fashanu? It's like, dude, just watch. Like, truly just watch. He was awesome last year. Just the numbers did not.
He was open all the time.
So he is, for my money, if I had to bet, like I think I said this on a show maybe a couple weeks ago. I was like, Rome Odunze will get his numbers. I fully trust Rome Odunze will get his numbers. There's no one else in that offense that I'm for sure gets the numbers, but Rome Odunze will get numbers. Just there's so many mouths to feed, but he will be open. And he will be the guy, if you're putting anyone in the, quote unquote, Amon-Ra St. Brown role, he's open in it.
He's a heady guy. He's really smooth. And I don't think his
call him Del Odunze.
I don't think his heart rate goes above, whatever a normal range is. The guy is just chill. And when you watch him run routes, he's silky smooth with it. And like I said, he's open. So if Ben Johnson can get through to Caleb Williams and get that football coming out on time and in rhythm, he's going to get his numbers.
All right. My wide receiver that I'm picking to be a breakout player, and if you followed my draft analysis, this is no surprise. It is Adonai Mitchell, the Indianapolis Colts wideout, who had what I would describe as one of the weirdest rookie seasons of all time. He was, when he was on the football field last year, he had the 14th highest target share in the entire NFL. He had a higher target share than Justin Jefferson as a rookie wide receiver 4, which is odd in and of itself. He had a top 3 target share against man coverage in all the NFL last year. His average separation score per fantasy points, which tracks, every route of every wide receiver and charts how well they separate, was the highest in the NFL. But he dropped like a zillion passes. I'm looking up right now. He dropped 4 of his 27 catchable targets, even though he only dropped 1 ball at Texas the year prior. He had the lowest catchable target rate of any wide receiver in the NFL. It was just a comedy of errors there when they tried to get Adonai Mitchell a football. But this guy is, and his teammate, Michael Pittman Jr., raves about him. He's like, if he doesn't, I think his quote was something like, if it doesn't work out, that Adonai Mitchell, it's something not related to football. Because the guy is so incredibly talented that something has to happen. He has to be a factor in this offense. So I think obviously Daniel Jones might be better for his numbers than Anthony Richardson at this point, but we'll see. I do just think that he's too talented to just be the 312-yard receiver we saw a year ago.
I don't think there's any planet where he's better. Alec Pierce is better than he is. I think that should be a slam dunk in terms of, and we're talking about Alec Pierce getting paid pretty soon or trying to get paid. I'm with you. I loved AD coming out, and he was very angry that he ended up going outside of the first round. But my biggest concern is the 3-headed monster that is Richardson, Jones, and your guy Riley. So I don't know how you solve that problem, because that feels like the bigger issue.
That's it is, right? It is. So it may not work out, but it may be because of that.
That's this is almost like the Bengals offense with their defense and how frustrating it is. It's like there's so many options to get explosive plays, to make hay offensively, and you just can't do it because you've got that bottleneck at the quarterback position. It's one of the most frustrating things in the NFL.
All right, I'm going to go to running back here. Honestly, I didn't have a lot of good picks. Even this one, I'm not sure I love. I feel like everyone at running back who I was like, oh, they're going to break out. People already kind of know they're going to break out. And I didn't want to include rookies in this. I do think Kenneth Walker has a monster year with a revamped O-line in that new scheme from Clint Kubiak. But everyone knows Kenneth Walker, right? The front flip, 1,000 yards as a rookie, we're not breaking any ground there. But this guy, I think, could have a big year, or at least a breakout year compared to what we've seen from him. Because really, through 2 years, he hasn't done a damn thing. It's Kendre Miller, New Orleans Saints running back, who was basically Dennis Allen's arch enemy. If you remember the quotes last year, fantasy guys loved this meme. Anytime Dennis Allen talked about Kendre Miller, he absolutely hated him. And he was young coming out. He was 20 years old on draft day. Maybe he was immature. Maybe he did whatever. Maybe he got in his doghouse and never got out of it. But basically couldn't see the football field despite being a 3rd-round pick. Now he's a quote-unquote best shape of his career guy.
Love that.
Coming out of every
love that.
You love those guys. Every year there's half the team. And he's it this year. But I do think that now he's finally, coming from a super simplistic scheme at TCU, had 2 years in an NFL offense. You saw him kind of down the stretch when he did get some run, have some impressive runs. And I think with a 30-year-old, Alvin Kamara in a season that's, I think everyone says is going to be kind of a wash in the end, you're not going to put 300 carries in Alvin. You're going to want to split backfield here. You're going to want to see what you got in Kendre Miller. So I think, I'm not predicting 1,000 yards, but I think he could be a 700 to 800 yard guy that after the season we're talking about potentially being the lead dog heading into 2026.
I agree. I think it was incredibly hard to sort of come up with something that, because even if you're sort of a service level fantasy football fan and don't care less about the actual teams, you know all the running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. So there's no one that's going to be on your radar that you didn't probably know about already. And Kendra Miller is a dark horse for the reasons you laid out there. And any success he had will make life easier for whoever that quarterback ends up being, because that team, as we sit here, looks like a pretty bad outfit on paper, and maybe they surprise us. That reminds me, Kyle, in terms of guys being nasty, offensive linemen, where do you rank Trevor Penning, who loved to fight at the Senior Bowl, but it hasn't quite translated to on-field success?
So Trevor Penning, what was the name of the college you went to? Like Minneapolis, Northern. Yeah. Okay. So his coach, his O-line coach at Northern Iowa was my teammate at Oregon, Ryan Clanton. So I've known about this guy for a very long time, because obviously he's like an avatar physically, like, 6'8", 320. He's probably got the washboard abs too. But he had his struggles, like so many of these guys in the NFL have in the pass protection department. But the saving grace for these guys, it's like if you can run in baseball, there's a spot on the team for you. Well, if you can run block in football and you got that nasty to you, you got a spot. He's earned his spot, and hopefully he's coming along in the pass protection department as well. But he's nasty. He's got the traits. He's just got to work on his technique in the pass pro department.
All right, Ryan, the main position, quarterback. You could only pick one. Who was your pick?
So I had to go with the first round pick here. I almost went, and I'll let you guys decide if I went in the right direction or not. I almost went with Bryce Young, because I'm going to ride the Bryce Young train either to the top of the mountain or over the cliff. But instead I went with Drake May. And I'll be honest, I thought Drake May should not have started last year, because I thought he was pretty inconsistent at UNC, and that's fine. He was a young player, and that offense was a little quirky, and he was going to a dreadful situation in New England. They threw him out there, and he swam. He swam more than he sank, and I was incredibly impressed with what they did. So now they have Mike Vrabel. They have Josh McDaniel back. They're trying to fix the offensive line finally by not drafting only centers and guards. They got Will Campbell. They got Mike's guy Kyle Williams, who's wide receiver 3 or 4 right now, so he has a chance to break out. They got a running game in Trey Henderson to go along with Ramondre Stevenson. And I think if we see Drake take the steps from year 1 to year 2 that he took as a rookie, if you told me this team won 9 games, I will be all in on that. I might be incredibly bullish on the Patriots, which is a wild thing to say given how poor that team has been run the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. But I think Drake May can be a guy that, makes everyone forget about the fact that Mac Jones didn't exactly work out. And, I think he has a chance to be all right, let's see if I can be somewhat sensible here. Top 12 quarterback by the end of the year. Is that too rich?
I'm not even mad at it.
All right, good. I'll take it.
I'll say this. I do love how far the quarterback sort of conversation has come, that when you look at Drake May's numbers last year, I mean, they're not good, right? 2,200 yards, 6.7 yards per attempt, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. But you won't find a pundit basically being like, is Drake May, this is like, is he or is he not a franchise quarterback? What you saw as a rookie, even given those stats, just like watching the film, that was what a franchise quarterback looks like. It's going to happen. It just is. He's going to be a franchise quarterback. Maybe he's not going to be top 5. Maybe he's not going to be where Jaden Daniels is. Maybe he isn't going to be, this elite guy. Who knows? He could be. He has those tools. But I think you can watch that and say he's going to be. But I think if we had the same guy maybe a decade ago and he had those numbers, you would not necessarily have the same conversation. A lot of people would be like, well, look at his numbers. Look at how bad they were. It's like, we finally are contextualizing quarterback play, at least to some degree. The Jalen Hurts conversation that happened this offseason has not been contextualized to the same degree, but we've contextualized Drake May's conversation at least. And so I'm right there with you that not only do I think he takes the next step in his development, but like the numbers will take a massive step just because they almost have to. He has a brand new team around him. They will get better. So
who has a better year, Bryce or Drake?
Drake.
That's
really?
tough. That's tough.
Hunter Renfro's coming back. I'm just going to put that out there.
I honestly, I think Bryce has a really big year. I think he has enough, and it's what we saw down the stretch turns into actual numbers matching because he has guys that can make plays. I'll lean Drake though. He's closer.
Dude, the jump from year 1 to year 2 is the biggest jump you'll ever have as a player in the National Football League. And for a guy like Drake May, who, like you said, Ryan, he didn't even have ground to stand on as a rookie quarterback. And he went out there and he not only tread water, he was out there backstroking in that thing. He was feeling himself, and people fell in love with him, and they're going to continue to fall in love with him. And one thing that a player that I fell in love with yesterday when reading about the Patriots, Demario Douglas. So he was asked about being a slot receiver in the slot-heavy Josh McDaniels offense. He said, while there have been a lot of great players who have done a lot in this position, I'm excited to show people who are used to white chocolate how good dark chocolate can be.
Love it.
That's great. You can do the Patriot way and still be funny, okay? That's funny. I'm looking forward to watching Drake May, and I am rooting for Demario Douglas.
Oh, that is a fantastic quote. There's your all-breakout offense.
There we go.
Roma Dunze at wide receiver. Adonai Mitchell at wide receiver. Dalton Kincaid, Brent Strange tight end. Josh Simmons, Dominic Puny, Zach Frazier, Christian Mahogany, Darnell Wright, your offensive line. Kendra Miller at running back, and then Drake May at QB.